And another new thing that's happening with these people is those who have been here for many years without status or who had an order of deportation never left. The government is now sending them invoices for payment up in the millions of dollars. They owe $500 a day for every day they've overstayed their deportation order or when their visa ended. So 2 clients have come in to me with invoices for about $1.8 million.
Gotham Investigations. We are here in beautiful Coral Gables with one of South Florida's top immigration attorneys, Marcia Hansen. Marcia, welcome, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions and answers that you have that could help the immigration community of people that are trying to get here legally.
Sure thing. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
thank you for having me.
Because of a previous administration, Biden administration has gone to the extremes of allowing people to come into our country. This administration, currently with Donald Trump, has gone to the opposite extremes in trying to get people out of the United States and then have them try to come in legally. You've experienced more business because of this in your field?
Definitely.
Now, because of the extremes, what have you seen as far as like remain in Mexico policy? Are there people here that are just like stuck here and are afraid to come forward? I know there's an app that says if you come forward, we'll give you $1,000. We'll get you out of the United States and you can come back. I wouldn't trust that if I was an immigrant, because how many people do they have monitoring it? How many people are going to assist these people? What have you faced and what fears have you faced from individuals that contact your office that literally can be picked up and taken out right away?
Right. So there are a lot of people here currently are undergoing processes to get legal status, but they're very fearful even with that. So many people who crossed the border during the previous administration, like you said, were assisted by agencies that help them seek asylum, which means they're saying that they can't go back to their country because they have suffered persecution, religious or political persecution. And so they have an asylum case pending, but those people are getting picked up as well. So they're very fearful as to what they should do because they could get picked up at any point, and they want to know from me oftentimes, what should I do? What should I say? What should I have on me? And I just recently spoke to a group of about 30 Venezuelans, and I told them that they should always have what's called a receipt notice on them, which means they have an active asylum case going on. They should have their work authorization, and they should have a person that they select who is a citizen to have a copy of their folder with all of their immigration documents, because the most common thing that happens is these people get taken in, and then the people who call me on the outside don't know their date of birth, don't know their actual full name, don't know the process that they're under. So it's very difficult for me to help them and to appease their concerns for the person that's in the detention center.
Now, public records requests are not that they're not that cooperative when dealing with immigration and immigration documents and stuff like that.
Right.
But a lot of people complain, hey, I have to pay $4,000. Why am I paying you $4,000 to do paperwork for me when I could do it myself?
Yeah.
You recently had a case that they came to you after the fact, and now he faces deportation because that paperwork was filled out wrongfully. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I have an individual who applied for residency through his son. And he did it himself because most people just want to save a buck here too, which this is not the place to save money.
Or the administration to save money.
Right. So he filed the forms, but he failed to attach his records that showed that he had been arrested previously. And as a result, the government contacted him and said, you have to send us those records. So he came to my office and says, you know what, maybe I should hire an attorney now. Can you help me produce those records? So we were in the process of doing that. Within a week after, he gets a notice from the Department of Homeland Security that they're seeking to deport him, because now they have been advised that he's been here for many years and he has a prior criminal record, which they didn't know of. So had he hired me Originally, we would have been able to send off the criminal dispositions and explained it to the government, and it wouldn't have been delayed. And Department of Homeland Security would have never sent him this letter. We would have prevented deportation. So there's a value to an attorney actually doing your paperwork.
So now the hurdle gets twice as complicated.
Oh, yeah, because now we have to go to court. So he had hired originally to just submit documents, but now he hired me to defend his deportation, which is completely different.
And now he's probably going to have to pay triple than what a regular paperwork documents for you to fill out and review and ask the proper questions would cost.
Yes. And another new thing that's happening with these people is those who have been here for many years without status or who had an order of deportation never left. The government is now sending them invoices for payment up in the millions of dollars. So they're owed $500. They owe, according to a regulation, they owe $500 a day for every day they've overstayed their deportation order or when their visa ended. So 2 clients have come in to me with invoices for about $1.8 million.
Wow, that's insane.
I know.
So
So it's a way for the government to kind of scare them that if they don't pay this, they're going to be out of here, but there's no way for them to pay it. So a lot of them now say, well, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to voluntarily deport myself. But some of them just say, forget it. I'm going to take the chances and see what happens.
See how far I can go. I mean, it's kind of like you're in prison and now you have a jailbreak. You're here in the U.S. How long can I stay out of prison for before I get sent back to my depressed country and everything that comes with it? So Donald Trump with the military against the border, going into cities and even cities that are sanctuary cities such as Nevada, going into Clark County. It's already proven that crime is going down in these cities, even though you have the Democrat delegation in Nevada saying that he's targeting racial profiling and they're doing things that are out of the norm. But now a lot of independents are saying this is what we needed, because that Clark County in Nevada is one of the largest immigration concentrations of illegal immigrants that there are in the U.S. You recently experienced and observed some things happening here in Key West. Can you explain that to us?
Right. So, so a lot of these measures to deport individuals are actually, I think, well, worth it, because a majority of them are violent criminals. And I agree with what the administration is doing there, because it is protecting our cities. We don't need to have violent criminals who are illegal here. But there are also some instances where people who are not violent and who actually have a pending situation in court going on that gives them the right to stay here, getting caught up in a sweep. And that's unfortunate. And I think that's the problem that's occurring with a lot of the ICE sweeps, is that you have people like a lady who called me the other day. Well, her boyfriend called me, and she has a pending asylum case. But she was picked up in this recent Key West sweep, where what happens is the ICE agents were monitoring license plates of cars that would drive past them, and those that were registered to individuals who are undocumented. They would pull them over and they would bring them to ICE. And apparently they got about 100 people. But within that, they got my client and maybe some others who should not have been sent to the detention center, and who now had to hire an attorney in order to help them get out and explain, hey, you got the wrong person.
Well, that's one way of clearing up the traffic problem in Key West, I mean, for sure. But yeah, being a policeman for 30 years, we've been attacked with racial profiling where certain operating procedures have been changed. That before, if you would see a Colombian, you would pull them over and search for drugs or bring a canine dog. Now you can't do that. Of course, previously in New York, they had the stop and frisk that they were doing, that they would find a lot of guns. But technically, when you look at it, roadblocks that we do down here in South Florida, there's a criteria. They'll stop like every 6 vehicles. They'll pull them in to shoot, and then they'll ask for the driver's license, their registration, the proper documents. But when you think about it, we can do, stop and frisk. What if we did it like every 6 people that were walking on the sidewalk? If they're allowed to do this in traffic, but driving is a privilege, Why wouldn't they be able to do this on the sidewalk with people?
Mhm.
Would you be against that?
I would.
And why is that?
Because at that point, you're definitely racially profiling and you are detaining an individual who has does not deserve to be detained for any matter. And it's a very frightening situation. So I think there has to be some kind of reasonable suspicion um, before a government agent stops someone. And it shouldn't just be based on the color of their skin.
And how do you compare that to roadblocks?
Well, from what I heard, and I could be wrong, this particular roadblock was based on their tracking the license plates back to undocumented individuals. And again, I don't know if that's just a rumor. I don't know if that's even possible.
Correct. But how do you compare that to local law enforcement doing roadblocks on regular people, like DUI checkpoints every 6 vehicles,
Oh,
asking registrations? When the holiday comes up here on South Beach, they stop every car and turn them around if they don't live in that area.
you know, you're right. You make a very good point. I guess the difference is that you're stopping them because they're driving. Driving is a privilege and they could be drunk while they're driving. And doesn't matter the color of your skin, doesn't matter where they think you're from. Everybody's driving a vehicle where they could potentially be violating the traffic laws. Whereas if you pull over somebody while they're driving because they look like they're from another country, or while they're walking because they look, I think it's a little different because you're basing it on how they look.
Well, unfortunately, in the United States, we have a bunch of fraudulent scammers that take advantage of people because of the situation with the current administration enforcing all these immigrant laws. You have people that are trying to get here legally or are in a panic, and investment fraud comes rampant. Not with these poor people that are immigrants that are trying to come to the U.S., but from locals. They are selling them businesses that don't exist, businesses that they do a non-compete, but they violate it right away, properties that are in non-existent or depressed properties. How have you observed these scams taking place, and what can an immigrant do in investing? How do you handle your investors if they want to invest in a business in the U.S. to get their visa, and what kind of visa is that?
So I personally have not, but I have heard of these scams, and it's very unfortunate because these people want to seek a life in the United States and experience the American dream, and then they've lost all their money. So when an investor comes to me, first of all, I have to learn all about their business. And I work closely with business attorneys. And I tell the investor that before we begin, you need to work with the business attorney to go over the entire business that you are buying. And then I would hire somebody like yourself to actually do a thorough investment of the seller, so that you can confirm that it's all good, that there's no fraud here. So without those two components of having a business attorney and a good investor like yourself, I wouldn't even file it.
We do a lot of it's kind of like, banks have officers, compliance officers. That's what we do a lot. But unfortunately, a lot of people contact us after the fact. What is the threshold to invest in the U.S. for a visa? Is there a dollar amount involved?
So for the EB-5, which is the one that gets you the green card, it's a little bit over 1 million, and 800,000 in these government investments. And then for an E2 visa, which is another investment visa, there's no specific threshold, but I always say over 150,000. They'll take it
Gotcha.
seriously.
So your specialty is bringing entertainers and top athletes into the U.S. Why do they get a privilege over everybody else? And what do you do to bring them in? What makes them so special?
All right. So they get a privilege, I'd say, I guess, because when they come here, they're actually creating money for the United States because they're helping American companies with ticket sales. They're helping American companies sell merchandise. They're also paying American companies to do their social media, to do their marketing. So they actually bring in a lot of money to the United States. So that's kind of why they get I guess, the privilege to get a green card if they have what's called an extraordinary ability. And that's a very, very high standard to meet.
And what are some of that standard that they have to meet? And why wouldn't that country they're coming from try to really hold on to these athletes or entertainers?
So to answer your first question, either they have to have like a gold medal in the Olympics or an Oscar from the Academy Awards, or they have to fulfill about three of other factors like international recognition, winning major awards, being on certain TV shows or in certain competitions that they have to qualify for. And usually we have to present a huge amount of documentation. I mean, my submissions are well over 300 pages or 400 pages of documentation. So they have to be pretty special. And I guess the country would want them there, but it's also good for the country because, for instance, I represented one of the top swimmers in Singapore. And I learned with that submission that Singapore has a huge swimming contingent in the Olympics, and they have a great program. So it gives Singapore also, lets people know about Singapore, and maybe people will go there and try to start training over there to get the benefit of all their swimming coaches.
Now, what about working visas? Because prior to this administration, you can work in hotels, would bring people from other countries and give them, an opportunity to work in a hotel in different environments like that. Has that all come to a stop, or can workers still come in to work?
So, yes, the working visas for workers can come in like the H-1B. However, if you're out of the country, there's now a new law that if you're out of the country and you're applying for an H-1B, there's a fee of $100,000. So that fee used to be only $400.
It used to be $400 and now it's $100,000.
So there's major litigation about that now because the question is it a fee? Is it a tax? Is it a penalty? What is it? I think it's not going to be able to survive, but litigation goes on forever. So for right now, if you're trying to get an H-1B, you have to shell out the employer has to shell out $100,000.
Oh, the employer. So
the employer.
So in other words, they're screwed now. No one's going to do that. It doesn't make sense. They were bringing them down to get that work done because literally they would have harder workers working because they know the circumstance would be you're out of here type of thing.
Yeah. So the reason behind it is because there's a lot of individuals from India apparently, who will work at a much lower rate for these big corporations. So they're trying to prevent that from continuing to happen. And other countries, I guess, that would work at a very low rate. So they're now seeking, to prevent that. And obviously it's probably going to, because the corporations are going to say, well, what am I going to do, pay $100,000 for each of these people? Like, it doesn't make sense. But then there are also another type of employment visa that can happen for hotel workers. So that hasn't been affected. But there is a stall right now. It's a 90-day stall based on a presidential proclamation that people from certain countries, mainly countries where a lot of terrorists come from, but it also includes Cuba and Venezuela, that the tourist visas are partially suspended. There's a lot of exceptions for it. But if you are over in Cuba and Venezuela right now, you can't apply for a tourist visa.
So Venezuelans in Doral area, they're all in a state of panic.
Yes.
What suggestions could you give them? Because a lot of them came here, legally, even though they don't have their status, they were allowed to come here, and now they're here. Do you recommend them putting in paperwork? Are they going and yanking people when they see paperwork coming in? What would you recommend?
Yeah, they are yanking people when they see paperwork coming in because some of these people have stayed here illegally.
Past their time.
Right. If they've been here for years and years and years illegally, it's more likely they could get yanked. A lot of these people are putting in asylum paperwork saying that they can't go back to Venezuela because of the fact that they fear for their life. So it's a difficult situation. And then a lot of people are leaving.
Do you see anything that kind of shows why the Trump administration is out there hitting boats coming out of Venezuela, surrounding Venezuela, and now putting pressure on the immigrants from Venezuela here in the South Florida area. Do you see any connection with that?
I'd never put a
Any master plan going on yet?
I don't know. That's above my pay grade. I don't know. Maybe you have a theory on that, but I don't.
So what do you recommend to these people, though? They come to you, they fill out paperwork, you don't. Is there like an address you could put on there, like your office, rather than their home address, where they could be shielded with attorney-client privilege and not expose their address location?
No, I don't. I can't do that. So we have to put their address, and I tell them, like I said, they have to have a contact person that will have their file, whether it be me or I usually say a family member, because sometimes the raids happen and it's outside of working hours. So you have a family member who can call me with their whole file. And I tell them, you could file for asylum if you truly have a case. But if you don't have a case, we can't file. A lot of people that I had seen with before their temporary protected status ended, we tried to convert them into something else, whether it be family or student or whatnot. But now that it's run out and they haven't done anything, a lot of these people are kind of in a situation where they're just undocumented. And
what's your feelings on recently state troopers were stopping all yard vehicles, yard trucks, obviously Mexicans cutting grass, attacking like taco stands and different things like that? I mean, what is your feelings on that? You think they're taking this a little too far?
So, I mean, it's weird. I have a background of being a criminal defense attorney as well, so I have conflicting feelings on this. I know that in the criminal world, I argued a lot of stops were illegal because they weren't based on anything, right? No reasonable suspicion, no probable cause. But I see that with these kind of stops, they don't have to be based on anything, and I think the law allows them to racially profile. So my personal feelings, I feel sad about it, because I just feel sad. But I feel like we're in this situation now where
have to take action, Being a policeman for 30 years, I mean, I think that we have to take action to an extreme. Just don't screw with Taco Bell, Donald Trump. So if somebody wanted to contact you, Marcia, and get the ball rolling, give us your cell phone number or your office number, your email address.
Okay, so my office is 786-999-8467.
And your email address?
My email is Marcia at immigration-legal-center.com.
And the name of your law firm?
It's the Immigration Legal Center.
Gotham Investigations. This podcast was on immigration and how you can protect yourself in the U.S. by contacting a top-notch immigration attorney, or if you're invested in the U.S., how you can hire Gotham as your compliance officer. We'll see you at Gotham.